The challenge of 2024, releasing fear-based beliefs, hence the amount of conflict in the world. Look at the earthquakes, the volcanic eruptions, the weather changes, it's going to get more intense. 2024 is the year of change. There's been a gradual change in frequency in our system. The sun is the driving force that is changing the frequency. And when the sun changes, each planet has to match the frequency of the sun. The earth is changing. And because we live on the earth, we have to change to match the frequency. October, November, December would be the inception of the high frequency change. January would go much faster. I was told people will struggle. Welcome to the new world, the real world. People are going to need to make choices.
Recently, I booked a transformative energy healing session with Jamie from Refractive Healing. Through her divine energy healing, I found myself rejuvenated, reconnecting with my inner purpose and the universal energy that guides me. Jamie is a truly gifted healer. She seemed to intuitively grasp the challenges weighing on my soul and guided me towards a lighter, more enlightened path. I'm eager to share the secret gift with you, so please embrace this opportunity for healing by visiting the link below to book your complimentary energy healing session with Jamie. Let the journey of rediscovery begin. And now on to today's guest.
I was 21 years old at the time, or 20 years old, something like that. I'd been skydiving for a while, since the age of 16, so I was fairly experienced. And I was doing a jump, quite a fairly high altitude jump with some friends at the time. And it was about 1 minute and 30 seconds of free fall time. But when it came to actually opening my parachute, I went through my usual procedures. And as I did so, I like to look up and watch the deployment of the canopy to ensure that nothing's going wrong. And as I watched the opening, I could see something was not quite right, and it only partially opened. The left-hand side opened correctly and the right-hand side didn't. So what actually happened was it threw me into like a pendulum. It was quite a violent pendulum, like we were on the fairground rides, quite a strong high pendulum effect. So I tried to counter this spin by pulling on the steering lines to stop the turn and turn the other way. And as I did that, because of the design of the parachute, it's like an aircraft wing, the left-hand side stalled and the right-hand side wasn't inflated, and I just fell back into like a partial free fall again. So I thought, well, this isn't going to work. So I let it go, let the steering line go and pop back up, and it started throwing me around again. And my brain went into high-speed calculation mode. How do I resolve the situation? And for some strange reason, and I only know this today, because of my experiences, spiritual experiences, my mouth opened almost like somebody else opened it for me. And I shouted, "Not now, I'm not ready." And I was like, what? A bit like, who said that? I didn't realize it was me that was saying that. And at the time, because I was in the midst of this incident, let's call it, I didn't have time to actually think about this. I was just, of course, I needed to save my life because I couldn't land like this. I would have killed myself. So I had to go through the procedures of releasing the main parachute, opening back into free fall, opening the reserve chute, considering my altitude and etc. and all the things you would normally do. And everything worked out fine. I landed, picked up the other parachute that I released and walked back to the clubhouse, had a massive headache from the high altitude exit with limited oxygen. But apart from that, I was absolutely fine. And it's only years later, when I look back at the event, that I realized this wasn't me, the ego. This must have been my higher self speaking out at the time. But it was so strange because it felt like somebody else, completely somebody else that was talking. It wasn't me. So that was the strange thing. It didn't actually launch me into a particular spiritual journey as such, but it was something when I had my awakening later in 94. All these things I started to consider when I looked back on my life at all the experiences I'd had. And suddenly I could see the markers where, oh, this happened for that reason, this happened for that reason. And then I got to this event. I was like, oh my God, this is what actually happened. And that's when I was amazed, because up till that point, I was blind to the reasons. I just knew this had happened.
And when you say you had this awakening where you understood what happened before as well, and you sort of made sense of this incident, what happened during that awakening?
This is back in 1994. I was working as a commercial pilot at the time, and I was working for a small airline in Uganda, which is in Central Africa, called Tropical Airways. And we had the crew, we had this house on the edge of the north shores of Lake Victoria. And although I was interested in things like UFOs and things, I read magazines and books, I'd never really delved into the spiritual side. So it wasn't something that I was looking for. And I went to sleep one evening and I had this lucid dream. If you've ever had a lucid dream, you'll understand. It's so real. It feels like the same as your waking state. Literally, it feels exactly the same. And I was standing in this house with a very large window in this lounge in this house with a very big field, green grass, trees, etc. And there were other family members off to the side in the kitchen chatting, and there was a few other people around. And all of a sudden, I saw this person flying down through the sky, a bit like Superman does, and descending in front of the window. And then came and stood up, like Superman tends to hover outside the window of a building you see in the movies. It was exactly like that. But I didn't, as soon as this person appeared and flew down, I knew straight away that this was my brother. He'd passed away when we were really young. I was 7.5 years old. He was 6 years old when he passed away. And it launched me on a trauma-related events, which I had to resolve, and part of the work that I've done on myself. But as soon as I saw the person, I knew it was him. And he came to the front of this window and was looking at me, and was much older, was probably in his 20s or early 30s, the similar age to what I was at the time as well. And then he reached forward and with his hand and through the window, and I was expecting the window to break, and it didn't. He just reached through the window, grabbed my right hand as if to shake hands. And then as soon as he grabbed my hand, I had this huge explosion of love energy, just like boom. It was like an atomic explosion within myself. And I've never felt anything like that ever. Even with out-of-body experiences and being to the other side, I've never felt anything like that. He pulled me through the window, and I was like, well, I'm going to break the window. But now I went through the window as well. And then we flew off together. And then later we landed on the steps behind the house. And as he started to talk to me, I lost the messages. Apparently I wasn't meant to hear what he was telling me. And then I woke up out of this dream, and I was like just in this massive shock, and I didn't understand what had happened. But I could feel my whole arm was as if it was on fire. I could still feel the energy from this connection. And from there, things just escalated. It was just this massive raise in awareness that I had. And I became obsessed with finding information about, spiritual aspects. And then I started to get some huge downloads in the late 90s, and all the course material I teach now, I downloaded most of that in 98. And yeah, that was quite something. And once I've done that, and I started to go within and look at myself, this is when I started to go back and review events in my life. And I realized that, yeah, certain things happened, and that particular incident that happened. And I realized, oh, wow, this is why this happened. And I went all the way back, and I realized that from about the age of 15 years old, there were the signs that my higher self was prodding me and saying, hey, pay attention, already when I was 15 years old. And before that, I didn't understand. I didn't know what the signals were. So yeah, it's quite an amazing thing when you look back and you realize, wow, I should have known. But of course, you can't know what you don't know. It's just one of those things, really. But it's an amazing retrospective journey to go back and look at yourself and realize, the path that you've gone through. That's really something good.
And then this has opened up, this experience has opened up the path for you to learn, to seek information. And then it sounds to me like the more you sought out information and knowledge, the more it sort of came towards you, and you were shown a more spiritual path. So how has your life been impacted by having these out-of-body experiences, I would call them, or downloads? How would you actually name them? And how has it impacted your life? Because nowadays you are teaching.
I think that's actually a very good point. And it's actually an aspect that I haven't actually mentioned before. And I've started highlighting this when I teach people now. I've included this aspect in the course, is when you have your awakening. And in this, I found in my travels, there's two types of awakening. There's the awakening type that I've had, with this massive watershed moment where yesterday you were this person and today you're now this person, and everything is different. In this day and age nowadays, with a newer generation, the younger people from their 30s and younger, they tend to arrive already what I call semi-awakened. So it's a soft awakening where there's no watershed moment. It's just a gradual increase in awareness. And so this is what I found. And this led me to contemplate as to the reasons why this was happening. Because I found for myself in the beginning, because I was immersed in the commercial world, I found that, let's call it 80% of my life was spent working in the commercial world. And then 20% of my life was spent it was like a hobby. It was like on the weekends, I'd go and research. I'd go to the library or to a bookshop and see if I could find something about spirituality. So I was looking for information. And as I went down my path, I realized the more I gained awareness, that balance started shifting. The importance of my spiritual quest changed from 20%, it increased to 30, 40, 50, 60. And eventually it became to such a point where it overshadowed my commercial aspect, working a normal job in the world. Suddenly, working a normal job in the world became less important. And I think today, in the last 2 years, 3 years, I think people, actually, I'm prompted to say probably back towards 2017, people are suddenly realizing that their normal 9 to 5 job is actually not for them. They need to find change. They need to make changes in their lives. So if people that are watching us are realizing this, you're not alone. Everybody's had that, and the trouble comes when we don't know how to achieve that. We don't know where to go. We feel a bit lost because when we feel misunderstood, we don't tend to talk about this to other people for fear of ridicule. And just realize you're not alone. People like myself and yourself, Sabrina, I think we're people that we can talk about these things openly. And if people are struggling, they can reach out and we can have a talk about these things. It's the toughest transition, going from working commercially to saying, my job is no longer good for me, because you are now releasing everything you know about what life means. You need the foundation of financial income. And if you leave your job, you don't know where it's going to come from. I've seen quite a few people that have actually taken that risk and just trusted it's going to work out. It does work out. I'm not saying you should run away without a plan. Choose your moment. But it's a very, very important facet, because we're moving into a new world, a new dimension, where the financial aspect is no longer going to be there. It's going to be about sharing. If you wash my car, I'll wash your windows, kind of thing. It's going to be a sharing. This thing about money and control, this is something that we're working against getting rid of. This is the fear-based aspect of the life we're living right now. So if you're feeling you need to change, there's a reason for that. Listen to it, explore, talk about it, talk to people. Don't be scared to talk about it. There's many, many people that are in the same position. And the more we make it okay, the more we can connect with your neighbor, with a friend that you thought wasn't going to accept this kind of conversation. So we need to be a little bit brave, especially in 2024 with all these changes. In some of my other podcasts, I've surprised myself in saying my parting message was just be brave. And I was like, well, that's not really enough. But now I realize it actually is. It is what's required, is to be brave and to take that step into the unknown. And wow, it's so exciting to have the opportunity to actually take that step into the unknown, because we are creating ourselves in that process. We are creating ourselves as new beings, as new human beings in doing that. And wow, this is what we came for. This is it. So let's do this.
I love the message. And I have to say, I know so many people, and myself included, that were not happy in a 9-to-5 job, or that you find yourself doing the thing that everybody's doing, that it just sounds like you're supposed to be doing, and you don't feel fulfilled. And there's maybe moments, because I think nothing is 100% good or 100% bad. There's good moments, there's bad moments, and it tends to accumulate over the years. That's, I think, the big thing. You don't feel it right away. You're in a job and you feel like it's not right for you. So I want to talk more about how the world is changing and what the new values are. Who do we need to be in this new world to be, I don't know if successful or happy, because those are the top of mind words, but content and at peace with ourselves, because it feels like it's much more important than happiness or success in any case. And how does that sometimes contradict what people feel in their normal jobs?
It contradicts. It's literally black and white, chalk and cheese. And this is what the scary part is. Because as you say, people that have been doing this for so many years, if I stop doing this, what's going to happen to me? And this is the fear-based reality that we live in. Let's say that we've been living in. And this is this transition phase into changing that. This is the challenge of 2024, releasing fear-based beliefs, hence the amount of conflict in the world. Look at the earthquakes, look at the volcanic eruptions, look at the weather changes, and I'm sorry to say it, but it's going to get more intense this year. All those things are going to escalate. So people are going to need to make choices. And if we change ourselves, you'll be surprised to find that the universe changes around you, because you can't control what's happening outside yourself. Yes, you can control driving to the store. Yes, you can control who you're going to visit, etc. But when it comes to bigger things like our environment, we don't like the way things are happening in the world. The only way to really change that is if we each go within and we each change ourselves. If I change myself and you change yourself, and everybody does it, imagine the massive impact it would have. And this is what people don't understand. Maybe on an intellectual level, they understand that. But when it comes to Monday morning waking up and saying, right, what am I doing this week? Fear jumps back in and says, no, you have to go to work now, and all those things you've been thinking and believing that, yes, this could be better. That changes. When you wake up Monday morning, fear comes back and, oh, if I don't go to work, I'm going to lose my job. If I lose my job, then I'm going to not have any money. If I don't have any money, I'm going to lose my house. And it's that snowball effect. Yeah, it spirals, it pulls us down. And this is the problem. Yeah, this is the problem we're facing. But people don't believe themselves. It's all about self-empowerment. Yeah. Everything is about, when did I lose my personal power? And this is one thing that I teach on the course, is to go back and to find the moment where, let's call it, we lost our personal power. And in actual fact, when you go back and you look at it, you didn't actually lose it. You actually gave it away. You made a choice to give it away. You chose to say, I surrender, I give up. The world is too strong. I'm going to do as the world says. I'm going to become a fear-based believer. I'm going to believe I'm not as good as the bank manager. I'm going to believe that, the government is God and all those things. And suddenly my self-worth goes right down into the bottom of the bucket. And this is where we find ourselves now, is how do we get that back? This is the tricky part. And this is 2024 now stuff here. We need to find that. And it's only once we find that for each one of us that we will suddenly realize, wow, why didn't I do this sooner? I believed everybody. I didn't believe myself. We were conditioned from birth to believe that, we weren't good enough. And unfortunately, we believed that until now. So it's time to take that back here, that personal power, it's to regain that self-worth. And that universal truth, this is what we do. We have the tools to help you to dissect exactly what happened, when, and how to regain your personal power. Tremendously powerful stuff. Yeah, as I said, I worked with it on myself, and the reason the universal truth exists is because we have these tools. We have this technology where we can help people to find their personal power. This is what's needed. This is the important stuff. Welcome to the new world, the real world. This is 2024. It's massively exciting, but also massively challenging. So I do sympathize for people that are struggling, but don't be frightened to reach out. This is why we're here.
I love it. And I especially love how you talk about tapping into our own power, because I think this is so central. And to me, it seems like a lot of the people around us, even though they might want the best for us and have no hidden agendas, which is rare, but it does happen every now and then. Even those people, it's very difficult to get their advice or to get their input on things, right? Because then you're giving your power away, and you have to understand that when you're following somebody's direction or somebody else's choice, you're essentially not making your own. On the rare occasion, I guess it could align with what's best for you. But more often than not, it's just a fear-based thing where you're thinking, well, that person's more experienced, they know more, therefore their decision for me would be better than my own. But I think finding your personal power, and I would also add taking radical responsibility, I think that's also a very big thing, because you need to be accountable for everything you do. And everything that happens to you is happening because of something you've done in the past, good or bad, but it's all part of it, and we need to accept it. It seems very, very difficult to do for most of us. So do you have, I know that you work with people one-on-one, and then you have like a very personalized plan for them to do that. Do you have any general advice for how we might start to take a bit of our power back, or get that habit building?
You said a word just now that really stands out, and I think that's so important. Taking responsibility. Yeah, this is one of the most important aspects. Stand up and be counted. Take responsibility for your thoughts, your words, and your actions. Somebody might have more experience in a particular field, and that's normal. That's what happens with age, with experience. But it doesn't mean that you are less than that person. You just happen to be a bit further back on the path in this world. And that's absolutely fine. But we should still respect one another and help someone who doesn't have the same experience levels. Unfortunately, because of the fear-based belief systems, knowledge is power, right? And some people will withhold knowledge exactly for that, to make sure that you don't become better than them. And it's all because every single person is struggling with self-worth. Everybody. That's at the core of every single person. As I said earlier, we gave away that self-worth and self-esteem, and that drives us to live in a fear-based system. If I can get more money than you, then I will feel better than you. Doesn't mean I'm better than you, but the ego starts to believe that it's better because, oh, look, my car's bigger than yours. Oh, look, I've got a big house. I've got a boat and a car and a plane and all these things. And this is the competition. This is the competition. So how do we start to change that? Responsibility, as you say. And that starts from a young age. And this is also something that I realized after my awakening, because I went through some really, really tough times. And something that I didn't realize at the time is that there was something within me that always seemed to force me to speak my truth. It was almost like an invisible force that made me speak my truth, even in situations where I found that I would be at the losing end of a situation. For example, I lost everything 3 times in my life. I started from zero, just with my briefcase and my toothbrush. And of course, it was tough. I had to start all over again. I lost jobs because I was too honest and I couldn't help. I had to speak the truth, and I was discriminated against because I was too honest, because it was threatening those above me and those alongside me. So I was quite conveniently removed from the situation, and it was tough. But if I look back now, speaking my truth is the only thing that I had that stood me in good stead. Now, when I teach all these topics, I realize that if I hadn't spoken my truth, if I hadn't stood by my truth, I wouldn't be where I am today. The foundation, the truth. And there's a local truth, there's a personal truth, there's a universal truth, there's many, many different perspectives, like a puzzle, jigsaw puzzle. But there's one truth that drives us all. Now, this is what we need to find. And it's when we hang on to that truth, because this is the only thing we have. When we leave this life, you can't take your car and your house and your money, everything with you. All you have is your experience and your truth. To start with, when somebody reaches out and wants to do one of my courses, the first question I ask them is, can you work within truth? Because if you cannot work within truth, then I'm sorry, you are wasting your time and you're wasting my time, because this material will not benefit you. It's only in working in absolute truth that you can build a solid foundation. Picture a pyramid, how solid the foundation is. You need to have a solid foundation within yourself, which is truth, to build on. So think about where you are in your life. Do I work within truth? Yes, we need to be diplomatic many times, not to be ostracized from the world and from our workplace. But there are ways to speak our own truth without making a big scene. But we should always move towards truth. Always stand up for truth. Somebody else is being victimized, stand up for their truth. Because at the same time, if you were not aware of it, it would have nothing to do with you. But because you're aware of it, you are involved. You have a part to play in the scenario. So somebody is being victimized or somebody is being downtrodden because of their truth, go and stand with it. It may not look like the perfect idea, but when you look at it at a spiritual level, you are building a massive foundation for yourself because you are living in truth. That is the most important aspect. Always live in truth. And that's a good place to stop.
Do you think a lot of us have identities and lives built upon the lies that we tell ourselves? And maybe we don't have the intention of lying to ourselves, but maybe we've just lived years and years in telling ourselves certain things that were maybe convenient at the time. And what I'm thinking of is maybe 20 years down the line or 10 years down the line, it's very difficult to remember and to understand that you've been lying to yourself with certain things. And it can happen. I mean, I'm thinking of people in abusive relationships or in, relationships, for instance. It can be the same with a toxic job or a job that does not serve you. And you may have build beliefs that help you cope with that situation, right? Like you can say like, oh, my partner is just very stressed right now. He's going through this transition at work. Like this will all ease down. How do you go around these lies that we tell ourselves to be able to keep going in the situations that we're in because we think that serves our best purpose?
The funny thing is, if you look back at the last, let's call it 10 years, maybe people haven't noticed, but the truth has been coming up through the woodwork. Yeah. If you look at people that did bad, let's say bad things back in the 70s, 80s, etc., suddenly these people are being exposed. Oh, look what you did back then. They're having to face what they've done. Yeah. And this is not only for those people, this is for everyone, because those fear-based beliefs and those excuses and those lies we've been telling ourselves and then believing them and then telling them to others because we don't want to face the truth, those are coming out. And this is what's happening now. We're having to face those issues, those situations. So those things are happening. Yeah. So there's no hiding place from the lies. As you say, people have built their lives on lies. Some people have. And this is the ego. But we've got to look at the reasons why this happened. There's always a reason why somebody does that. Yeah. And it can be buried way, way back in this life. Sometimes it can be buried back in another life. And this all needs to be revealed. And this is something that we do at Universal Truths. We work out where the issue is. Where did it start? Because in this moment, in this time, in 2024, we're only working on this life. All the lives that we lived in this dimension come together now, in this moment, as one. So all together, we're working on all the fears and all the traumas from all the lives we've lived in this dimension, because we can only shift as a unit. There's no such thing as leaving part of yourself behind. It doesn't work like that in the universe. The universe only works in absolutes. Everything there or it's everything not there. So we have to have everything together to move into the next frequency. So we work on all those lives. Maybe we don't realize that. But this is the tricky part. And this is where we can help with that, is determining how to do that. But lies, yes, lives are coming to an end. And even though you might choose not to actively face them, they will arrive. This is what's happening. People are freaking out. I'm getting clients calling me up and saying, I don't understand what's happening. One day I'm fine and the next day I'm freaking out and I don't know where it's coming from. And this is what is happening to everybody, is having to face these things. So yes, we can wait, but if you don't face them now, later on you'll wish you had. And this is actually a quote from the source that said, that our channel that said this message to me. You may not want to face yourself now, but later on you will wish that you had. And it's happening. It's time to look in the mirror. And this is one of the first modules in my course. Face the mirror. Who are you? When you come home at night and you close the door, are you the same person that was outside in the street? When you go to bed at night, are you the same person that was outside in the street that was in the lounge in the evening? Because when you turn off all the external stimulation, like the phones and the tablets and the laptops, who are you? These are the questions. This is where truth about you, who are you? This is what you need to determine. This is the work. And if you've been lying, take responsibility. Nobody else needs to know. You are the one that needs to face yourself. It's almost like a mini judgment at an end of a life where you go through and you have to review your life. Except this time, we're doing it without actually physically dying. We're doing it consciously because we want to consciously move to the next frequency dimension. So we have to do this consciously. Everything is happening consciously. So we have to be brave, that word again, yeah? But the good thing is you're not alone because we're here to help.
It really sounds like when you said the part about people calling you with the one day I'm fine and the next day I'm a mess, it literally sounds like my life for the past few months. So I'm glad to hear it's not just, because I'm always very structured, very planned out, but it sort of seems like everything is going out the window. So I'm very happy to hear it's not me, it's the planet. But I will say it's me though, because I hate being in the victim role. So I like to take responsibility for everything that's happening. Tell me more about the planet, the frequency that's changing, because you've said it's 2024, like we have this big shift coming. Why is this shift coming? Why in 2024? I feel like you've given us some crumbs that we need to, be truthful to ourselves. We need to do what we're supposed to do. We need to be brave. But tell me a bit about the backstory. Why is this happening now? What is actually happening? And how can we best make it through this transition?
So I was given a prediction by the source. I was called in for a meeting back in September last year. And I never really spoke to the source direct. I was always dealing with my higher self. And suddenly here was this message like, we need to talk, something along those lines. And although I tried to ignore it for the first couple of hours in the day, halfway through the day again, we need to sit down. Well, the words were, you need to channel. And I was like, yeah, I'll get to it. I'm busy now. By the end of the day, I had no more excuses. Oh, okay, let's do this. So I sat down and started the channel, and the information came through, and I was like, whoa, okay, so this is the source. And I was told that these changes are happening, and this is what we need to look out for. Yeah, 2024 is the year of change. What I was told, because back in 98, when I had my massive download, I received some information, which appears in my second book. When I had started having the discussion with the source, I was given the timeline prediction for back end of last year and into this year. And I asked certain questions based on the prediction that I was given back then. And I was told the reason why things are changing like they are now is there's been a gradual change in frequency in our system, and not only on the planet, because the planet is essentially governed by the sun, and the sun is the driving force that is changing the frequency of the whole solar system. And when the sun changes, because all the planets are attached with a force like a gravitational pull magnetic force, this propagates throughout the whole solar system, and each planet, each celestial body has to match the frequency of the sun. So this is what's happening now, and it's increasing. Instead of being gradual, slow, it's now doing this, and it's getting steeper. The changes are happening more quickly. So the Earth is changing, and because we live on the Earth, we have to change to match the frequency. If we want to remain living on this Earth, if we can't match the frequency, then we will remove ourselves, let's call it, from this life, because we are not ready to follow the frequency changes. So the Earth changes. The Earth doesn't need us. It will change anyway. So it's a case of, if you choose not to change, then it's your responsibility. And these changes are, we have to ditch the fear-based belief system, because it's the only way we can increase our frequency to stay with the planet raising its frequency. So if you're starting to feel really stressed about your life, and we're having these swings of the week I'm feeling fine, and then the weekend, oh my God, everything is hopeless, I feel terrible, my life is very bad, and we have all had these feelings since January. And I was told this by the source that October, November, December would be the inception of the high frequency change. From January, it would go much faster, much steeper. And I was told people will struggle because people have not been prompted. Well, they have been prompted to make these changes in the past, but because we're too busy with life, we've ignored those messages. So we've left it. And now we are starting to get a little bit left behind. And this is where it's getting uncomfortable, because we need to get back up to the same frequency as the planet. And the longer you leave it, the more that distance is going to grow, and the more uncomfortable it's going to become. So what we're feeling, and as you quite rightly said, one day I'm feeling fine, and the next day I'm not feeling so good. It does this: feeling good, feeling bad, feeling good, feeling bad. But you may have noticed perhaps in the last 3 months that curve, it's instead of being this getting a bit flatter. If you're doing the work, you'll find that the curve is getting flatter. And instead of lasting 2, 3, 4 a week of feeling bad, maybe a couple of hours, and you're realizing that, oh yeah, I know what's going on. These are just the frequency changes. So if I just keep doing what I'm doing the work and working on myself, then it's just a phase. Tomorrow will be better. It's that trusting and knowing that if I do what I'm meant to be doing, and this is the big one, if I trust my feelings, if I do what feels right, then everything will work out the way it's meant to work out for me. It's not what I want, it's about what I need. I need to make changes to keep pace with the frequency changes. And this is what's happening in 2024.
Such a good explanation. And when you said like that the transitions, are getting flatter, from my own biased belief, it seems like it's trending upwards as well. So I know for me, everything seems to, whenever I tend to feel unsure about something or stressed out, I seem to at the same time get a confirmation that I'm on the right path, or a confirmation that I should keep going the way that I'm going. And to me, I think since I've been doing this podcast, to be quite honest, I've always believed in God. But since I've been doing that, it's been much more present in my life, because I see the synchronicities and the power it's had onto other people's lives. So whereas before I was very much in control of my own life, and I thought I decide and I do what I have to do, and if I want something, I just push my way there until I get it. Now I let more room for divine intervention, and I look for signs and I ask for signs. So
Yep.
it seems to me that whenever I let myself a bit go and say what's right for me will be shown to me, and if it's wrong, that it will not happen and I'll be okay with it, it seems like it's taking me to a more peaceful place. Is that the case for everybody, or is that just my experience?
No, I think you're absolutely correct. And it reminds me of something that, as I said, when I look back in my life, I see that from the age of 15 years old, I was getting some messages. And the one message that really stuck with me throughout my whole life was, if you don't know what to do, don't do anything. Just observe. Yeah, observe, and the path will appear. Don't make silly choices. If you don't know what to do, just sit down, just wait for the path to clear, and you will see, you will find the right direction. That is so important. And it's still the way to do it. And again, if you don't know how to observe, trust your feelings. That's one of the messages. Yeah. It's one of the ways that Source communicates, God, whatever you want to call it, higher selves, feelings. If you're presented with a situation where you need to make a decision, does it feel right? If it doesn't feel right, don't do it. But don't wait 10, 15 minutes for your brain to get involved and confuse you and say, oh, but this and but that, and condition this and condition that. You've lost the plot. You've lost the message. First thought that comes to mind when you get that feeling, was the correct one? Always the correct one. So trust your feelings. If you're not sure what to do, wait till tomorrow. If it's meant to be for you, it will reappear tomorrow, the same option. You go, I see you. Yes, now I will do that because, and I test this all the time. If you want me to do this, I need proof. Nothing wrong with asking for proof. Yeah, because we are divine being ourselves. We are creators. We have the right. This is empowerment. We have the right to ask and confirm. We are not less. We are all the same. So, as you said, if you're not sure, check, observe. It feels right. Okay, I will go down this path.
I love
Best
it.
way forward.
You've mentioned earlier that the frequency of the earth is rising, so we have to raise our own frequency to match it so that we're able to live in peace. And from what I know about frequencies, and I'll explain it in a brief way and in a simple way, is the higher up the frequency, the better the feeling. So that's where we have love, gratitude, peace. And the lower we are on the frequency scale, we have fear, we have anxiety, we have bad things. Does this mean that we're essentially moving towards a better, happier, more content place, that the earth is going to be, I would say, more peaceful? Given what is going on right now, it just seems to me that there's so much, I don't know if unhappiness. It just seems like we're always on opposite sides, right? Like if you look at politics, if you look like the main issues in society, it almost seems like everything's been made out to be this thing where you're either on one side or you're on the other. And we tend to, it's almost like pitting us against each other, right? Like if you root for that one political party and I root for the other one, we can't just coexist. We have to tell the other one why you're wrong. And it feels like we're pitted against each other. Does the change in frequency and the fact that it's trending higher up, does it mean that we're going to a more peaceful place?
Yes, you're correct in saying that. And while you were talking about the opposites, the political parties, and what we don't realize consciously, the majority of the population, is that we live in what's called the duality experience. Yeah. So there's a left and a right, there's an up and a down, there's a hot and a cold. And when the soul incarnates, we come to experience those differences, the polarity of the experience. So if you have two buckets of water, if I'd say to you, the left bucket is cold water and the right bucket is hot water. Unless you put your hands in the bucket, you have to take my word for it. So as far as we go, I'm going to check. When we go to check, this is where we become part of the duality. So you put your hands in, you go, this is hot and this is cold. So now you own the experience. So when we come to these opposites, we are effectively choosing to experience this side or this side. And this is with every single experience in this life, because this is what the third dimension is about, the experience of clarity. Yeah, this is what's happening. And yes, we are changing frequency because we are trying to exit the third dimension. We're trying to leave the polarity behind. And unless we can accept that, yes, I have what I would classify my good side and my bad side, the shadow work, as people like to call it, unless I accept all those pieces as being me, I cannot move forward, because I am actually saying to part of me, you are no good. You don't belong to me. This is the problem. This is the dilemma, because we've been told Unless you're very good at something, then you are worthless, then you are not worthy. But we have to integrate both sides as one so we can move. So yes, we are moving into a better frequency. But in order to do that, we have to accept all those aspects about ourselves. And what we're seeing in the world right now, we have to go through this phase of exposing all the bad stuff. You know, this is why there's all this chaos at the moment. We have to accept all the bad stuff about ourselves. Then we can move through into the next phase. If we keep hiding it, we keep lying to try and hide it, we're not going to go forward. And this is part of the issue. And in the back end of last year, beginning of December, I experienced something that was really, really profound, which I never even contemplated before. And that was unity consciousness. It's something that's become a buzzword now, a bit like raising your frequency, raising your awareness. Unity consciousness has now become the buzzword. And yes, it was as powerful an experience as other experiences, Kundalini's and other experiences I've had before. Because it was so different. I tend to experiment and explore a lot of aspects about spirituality. And I'm an explorer. This is what I do. I was talking to a friend in town, and we always talk about, she sells my books for me, so we always chatting about things. And we were talking about one aspect, and somebody else was walking around the shop, and then this person couldn't help themselves and said, "Oh, I'm sorry, but I heard what you guys were talking about," and became included in the conversation. So this chap moved up to the counter, and we ended up, the three of us, having this general conversation about some spiritual aspect. I don't remember the details. When all of a sudden I had this expansion feeling within me. And usually when you have an expansion of awareness, it's like when you move into a blissful state. It's like a bubble, starts in your heart center, and it moves up and expands, and it feels like your head is expanding, and your awareness expands like a globe effect. And this was different because I felt the expansion start, but it was expanding outwards like a donut instead of being this round expansion. It was like a donut shaped expansion. And it started to include these two people that I was talking with. And as this expansion occurred, suddenly I felt this warmth, and I could feel that our auras were connected. And suddenly they were connected and they became one. And I was like, wow, just wow, this experience. And I had to snap myself out of it. I was so excited that I discovered this aspect that I had to say, guys, you never guess what just happened. I was so excited. And I always do this. I get so excited when I discover something new that I lose the experience. But this was really, really something to feel that connection with people. And their egos, they were no longer the people that I was looking at. They were just this energy, and we were all just connected. And there was this warmth and this comfortable. It's really amazing. So when you say, yes, we're moving into a higher plane frequency, absolutely, because you get these breakthroughs where you have a little deja vu of what's coming up next. Yeah. And I've noticed that over the years, I'll get these little, oh, this is going to happen. Oh, this is going to happen. And so absolutely, it's going to happen. Yeah. But we just need to put the work in. And the more we do the work, the quicker we get there. So very exciting stuff.
Do you know of any timelines? By when will all this chaos go away, and when will we be in a better place?
No, unfortunately not. I was told to expect an event middle of the year, but I think from what I've seen since the beginning of the year is that there's going to be a 2-month delay. There's a watershed moment in the year that happens. And I'm based, because I asked the source about questions about my development, etc., with reference to what I was given, and my development, the level that I was asking about, has happened 2 months later than what was originally said. And it's not a bad thing, because any prediction should be taken with a pinch of salt, because we can affect a prediction based on our behaviors. So if we if we do the work really, really hard, really, really soon, then we will change the events on the timeline. We can bring them closer, we can push them back further. So it's very difficult to say exactly. I don't like to say exactly, precise details, but all I can say is that, yes, it's not going to be an easy year. The only way to get through it is we need to start doing the work. And the more people do the work, then the sooner we can get through this phase. But there's no ways we have to go through this storm, because we have to admit to ourselves, yeah, we've actually been quite naughty, but we need to accept the fact that we've misbehaved in the past, not turn away from it. So that's the secret, I think, now to getting through this phase and to making it shorter than what it could be.
And when you say doing the work, I think we've had some hints in our previous conversation as to what that work actually is. But if you were to summarize it to somebody that's maybe just tuning in now into our conversation, what is doing the work?
So doing the work is going within and really looking at ourselves, honestly working with truth and saying, this is who I am, and accepting that. Because when we do this inner work, nobody else needs to know. It's a singular conversation. It's a personal dialogue. So it doesn't matter what the answers are. The secret is to actually go and look in the first place, to actually face yourself. You know, that's the biggest challenge, because people are scared to face themselves. You get two types of people. When I say this on the court, there's two types of people that walk past the mirror in the morning. There's the ones that quickly run past because they don't want to see themselves for who they are. Or there's the ones that stop and can't get away from the mirror because the ego is so big. So we have to look at ourselves so much we can't get away. So there's two camps, yeah? Where the thing is, we have to go and stand and go, right, so who are you? Let's sort this out. I like this about me. I don't like this about me. And I need to accept a whole lot before I can see exactly where I lost my personal power. Because empowering ourselves is the key here. Yeah. And our task at Universal Truth is to empower you. We can't fix it for you. We give you the tools on how to empower yourself so that you can connect with your higher self. Once you connect with your higher self, then your higher self will take you by the hand. You'll walk together and raise your frequency higher and higher and higher. Because essentially, you become your higher self when you ascend. So that connection has to happen. And the only way to get to that connection, we have to look at ourselves and say, I accept who I am, and work with truth. That's the beginning stages. So this is the work for 2024, is doing that. That leads to connecting with your higher self, which takes you further. Then you have the massive Kundalini awakening, which then brings you to higher frequency awareness, working with your light body, and just working towards the ascension process. So it's a journey. But again, I keep saying it, you have to be brave and be willing to take on the work. And of course, we're here to support people who are prepared to do that.
And it seems to me that when you avoid doing the work that you need to be doing, it has a way of just coming back and reminding you of it. And it also seems to me that every time you avoid it, the way it comes back is more intense. So you're sort of always getting a bit slapped, like you haven't done this, you still need to heal from that, you still need to do that.
Yep, absolutely. That's absolutely correct. And as I said, and this is the more the planet increases and we don't increase, the slap is going to get bigger. Yeah? So it's going to feel tougher. So it's best to get going, now while it's not too difficult, because it's going to get quite intense. Yeah. I like to say, choose wisely. Be brave and choose wisely.
Choose our lives or our experiences.
Everything. Choose wisely. Choose which direction. What is your intention? What is the driving force at your core? What do you really, really want to achieve in this life? Do you just want to get a bigger car or a bigger house? What do you actually really, really want to achieve? Yeah. What are you here for? This is that inner work that needs to happen. Yeah? That personal facing the mirror confrontation. It's tough, as I said to my clients. This is the toughest work you will ever undertake in any lifetime, because we're dealing with all the lives. But it's a requirement. Look, we came here for a reason in this life, in this time. We're alive in this time of frequency change for a reason. So just do it. This is why we came. Yeah. Let's enjoy. Let's do the hard work, do the training, and then we can relax on the beach later when we've done all the hard work.
It sounds to me, when you say hard work, I'm thinking that you do a lot of work with fear and transmuting fear. And I think all of us have, maybe the most bravest of us have less fear, but all of us have things we're afraid of, rational or not. Tell me about the work that you do with your clients on fear. And if we're in a place where we want to get rid of some of the fears that do not serve us, where do we start?
So because we live in a fear-based reality, primarily fear is an emotion, like joy, like happiness. It's just an emotion. And all emotion is a movement of energy. So the word emotion, motion, energy in motion. Because the auras are actually instruments. They're tools. Input, output, like a USB device, as each chakra energy center senses energy. So we feel emotions. And fear is an emotion. Fear is a necessary thing, because as long as you have a physical body, you will always need to keep the physical body safe from destruction. So this fight or flight thing, this fear, is to help you to keep your body from being damaged. It's just so So you never really truly lose fear completely. But what you do gain doing this work is you gain control. All the other fears that are not to do with physical survival, like invisible fears that we make up in our minds, where, oh, if I don't go and pay my bills, the bank manager is going to take my house. And those fears, those are irrational fears. If you lose your house, you're not going to die. It's not a rational fear. It's a fear that's been programmed into us. And this is the fears we're talking about, overcoming that initial programming where conditional experience, conditional love. If you don't behave, you go sit in a naughty step. If you behave, you get ice cream. Condition, Fear goes in between. Oh my God, if I don't behave. And the longer you leave it, we add layers onto that fear. We make that small fear bigger and bigger and bigger. And soon we can't look in the mirror anymore. This is the kind of fears that need to be eradicated. These are the fears that are stored within the aura as experiences. As I said, the longer we leave them, the more we can't look at them. In extreme cases, those fears become stagnant energy. An energy that stops moving becomes an energy imbalance within the aura, within the light body. And eventually, if we keep leaving it, that can manifest as physical dis-ease, where the body is no longer at ease. And this is when we start to have physical ailments. When we start having physical ailments, these fears have been left way too long. And all fears is just an imbalance of perception, how we see ourselves relative to the world. So we need to understand that fear is not the end of the world. We just need to know what it is and how we can overcome fear and say, yeah, not a problem. Nowadays, if I see a fearful situation for me, I say, come, let's do this, because I know how to unpick fear and see where the truth is. And it's actually, why was I afraid in the first place? This is the fear stuff. We can't, as I said, we can't do away with the fear of saving the physical body from harm. That's a necessary fear. All the other fears are a choice.
It seems more difficult to apply for things like, say, being afraid of a spider. So it feels like more, something that if you're afraid to lose your job, or you're afraid to, say, leave a marriage that you've been in for a long time, that's very much the world and society is conditioning you to stay within that situation. But I think sometimes we have these, silly fears. I mean, most spiders will not kill us, but sometimes there is something that some of us are scared by, right? It's not rational.
Yes, so those kind of fears, we're talking more about trauma than actual fear. If we've been exposed to something that we consider traumatic, something that's really scared us, then we build fear around us to keep us away from that experience again, because we don't want to experience that again. Some of these fear-based traumas, as you say, for example, the scared of spiders for some reason, that potentially could be located not in this life, in another life. And the thing is, you don't know, you're just reacting, because those kind of traumas, as I said, in this day and age, we are working on all of them, all the lives together. So these fears, even though you say, oh yeah, but I've had this fear since I was a child. Yeah, because it's carried over, so that you can work on it now. So you can become more and more aware of it. So you've had this traumatic fear response since you were a child, but have you done anything about it? Probably not. This is why you still carry it. So this is something also that we deal with. And it's all about the reasons why. Because once we understand why it's there and how it happened, then we're okay with it. We actually do away with that. So yeah, it's tricky, but it's things we are fearful of looking at. So there's fear attached to the trauma. And the longer we leave it, the more traumatic that fear becomes. So it's all about knowledge, and knowledge empowers you. And this is where we go and explore. And sometimes people may not realize they've got this latent traumatic experience that is actually located in another life. And if I come across this, during the course, then yeah, we can do a regression and go back and actually look at that as well. So I have all the tools required to do all this work. So, and one of them is, if regression is required, then we will do it. But at the moment, I'm still yet to see somebody that actually really, really needs that. It's like as a last resort. Most people just generally with understanding what fear is, where it is, and how we function and deal with it is actually enough to resolve a lot of those issues. So yeah, but that's generally the sort of the format.
Can regression have downsides? Because it seems to me that a lot of people nowadays are drawn into exploring their past lives and It's becoming, I think, a thing that we want to explore now, maybe a bit more than previous years. Can it have downsides, uncovering a lot of information that we're not prepared to handle right now?
You've actually given yourself the answer. We're going to explore something we are not ready to deal with. We've heard about this. Ooh, if I do this, I'll get. Then we go and check out another life, which is fine. Most of the time it's harmless, let's say, because you won't be exposed to something that you're not really ready to deal with, handle with. So your higher self will tend to say, well, hang on a minute, we'll show you the teddy bear, but we won't show you the other stuff because you're not ready for that in that life. So it will be you'll be fenced off from seeing, things that you're not ready to deal with. Personally, I've had requests to do general regressions, and I don't do them because it's like a party trick. It's like, why would you want to, for me, it's a tool, and we're here to do serious work. So I don't tend to agree with people ask me for regressions. I'll have a consultation with them and I see the reasons why they want to do it. But I'll just say straight up, at Universal Truths, we use regression as a tool to deal with trauma. That's it.
So we've talked about the work that we all need to do, and you've mentioned now and then how you and Universal Truth can support us in doing that work. As we're getting at the end of our interview now, tell us again where we can find you and how we can find out more about your work.
So you can head to our website, which is universaltruths.co.uk, and you'll find all the information you need, the services we offer, and the pricing that we offer. So all the information is there. There's a blog section where you can actually keep up with things that I discover on this path. I tend to post them as a blog update to keep interested parties involved and say, oh, this is what I've experienced. It is a new thing, so you can have a look at that. We also have a YouTube channel, which is still very small and started recently. But yeah, Universal Truths UK. We have a business page on Facebook that you can follow also for updates. We have a group page on Facebook where just over 5,000 members in the group. And again, any valuable information that needs to be shared for people to be aware of, then I'll post on those. And then on Instagram. And yeah, if you have questions, please get in touch. Not a problem. The first consultation is free. We can work out if I can help you. And if I can, then we'll establish a path going forward, deciding which course aspect suits you best. But yeah, conversation is always good to have. And then we have books. We have 2 books. The first book is also listed on our website, and that lists all the tools that I've discussed in a book format. It's a very small book, but it lists all the tools that we deal with in the courses. And then the second book is actually about how I got all the information, the journey from right at the beginning, all the drama, all the fun and games, things that have happened to get to this stage, and some of the predictions from source, conversations with source as well, also in the book. So get in touch, let's talk.